CUBE studios in Palo Alto and Boston, connecting with thought leaders all around the world. This is a CUBE Conversation.
Hi, I'm Stu Miniman, and welcome to this special CUBE conversation. We're helping cover the second generation of the VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. Happy to welcome to the program Rick Villers, who's the Vice President of Data Center and Cloud with IDC. Not too far from me physically, even though, of course, in today's day and age, we are all practicing social distance. Rick, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining.
Well, thanks, Stu. Pleasure to be here. Looking forward to a great conversation.
All right, so Rick, usually this time of year, you and I see each other more than we see our families because we are traveling the show circuit, going to the analyst events and one of the topics we spent a lot of time talking about over the years is, of course, cloud. VMware's partnership with Amazon is, of course, one that the entire industry took notice of, and the relationship of Amazon, VMware, and Dell is an interesting one. And what we're talking about today, though, is the VMware Cloud, or in the shorthand, VMC, on Dell EMC. And it's the second generation of this product. Help us understand kind of where this fits in the categorization and the research that you and IDC look at.
Yeah, Stu, it's an interesting question. It's one that we've actually been thinking about for several years now. And it had to do with some early conversations we were having back then with companies about their private cloud environment. They'd been deploying those for the last 4 or 5 years. We were seeing them come up on a sort of refresh cycle. And we started asking about how satisfied they'd been with those and where they wanted to use them. And we got back some very consistent feedback saying that they'd had some problems with their first generation of their private cloud environment and that they needed to address those. And one of them was a consistency problem, is that every private cloud they built, whether they built it themselves or whether they looked at a hosted private cloud provider, even in their own company, were different technologies, different configurations, different sets of tools. And that was a big problem for them. The second big problem they'd run into was basically every time there's a new technology or an upgrade or a fix, we basically can't adopt it quickly. We can't use it till the next refresh cycle. So we're always behind, we're playing catch up. And neither one of those things really aligned with what they felt cloud should be and what they'd been seeing in their public cloud environment. And so when we looked at that and we started looking at the feedback about what was coming on, we realized that we were about to see a new generation of private cloud environments. But we said, but this will be different, not just because of new technology, but it'll be actually different use cases and a different approach. And the first thing is we said is, first of all, it's not so much a private cloud as it's a dedicated cloud. It's I have resources that are dedicated to a business or a service and application I want to get done. And I want to basically operate that just like all those other clouds. And then the second thing is they said, and by the way, this is less and less about a general purpose new data center, just run my data center the same way. I want this to be a platform for creating new services that I want to deliver in a location, a factory, a hospital, a city block, whatever that is. And so we brought those together and we started looking at those and we said, well, this is really going to lead to the emergence of a whole new product class, which we started calling local cloud as a service, because it reflected both of those things. It was no longer assembling piece parts, but it was consuming these resources in an as a service method with all the benefits of agility and responsiveness and continual enhancement that come with that. But it was also about, I need to be able to put these in new location, not just in my corporate data center, but out where I'm trying to do new businesses and services. And that's what led us to start talking about this new product category called local cloud as a service. And then we started seeing solutions that came out on the market that fit very much with this idea.
Okay, yeah, Rick, really interesting because you're right. Private cloud is a conversation we've been having in the industry for about a dozen years. And one of the biggest challenges is you talk to 100 customers and you get 150 definitions of what a private cloud is. So if I hear you right, local cloud is, in some ways, it's an extension of what we see in the public cloud. So I think back, it used to be, hey, can I get the same stack in both places? We saw companies like, IBM and Oracle and even VMware saying, how can I match what you have in your data center there, as opposed to, Azure Stack, AWS Outposts,
Yep.
we're saying, hey, we're actually going to give you the same, same hardware, same software, and it's
Yep.
as a service, as you
Yep.
said.
Yep.
You talked about also some of those new locations. So, without getting into too much depth, so it sounds like, and I looked a little bit at your research there. There
Mhm.
is the data center piece, and then
Yep.
really emerging, there's the potential for edge use cases. Do I
Yeah.
see that right? Is just like we've got kind of the
Yeah.
hyperscalers, we've the data center,
Mhm.
edge is pulling on
Mhm.
everything. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
you're saying edge doesn't kill the cloud and everything before it. It's going to just be another option in what we
Oh,
see.
absolutely. I mean, for us, it's more of an extension of the cloud environment. And by that, we also said one of the other critical things in this is it changes. If you think about new applications that you're trying to create, whether it's in the public cloud or whether it's one of these local cloud environments, they're being built on a cloud native architecture. And that's one of the other key elements of this solution is these become the platforms that allow enterprises to bring things like containers and serverless designs and this sort of DevOps driven application development model into both the corporate data centers, which absolutely these solutions play, but also again to extend it out to places where in the past you didn't have a lot of IT, you didn't have a lot of compute and storage, but now if you're trying to do things like real-time monitoring for, in the world we're living in today, an airport, can I use machine vision to track the health of the people going through the airport? I need to deliver a cloud service essentially at that airport. I have latency issues, I have availability issues. I can't do it from a data center, sitting halfway across the country. It has to be at the airport. But I need to be able to basically have a reliable, consistent cloud environment that now I can put in 10 airports or 100 airports. So it's that combination of location, but consistency everywhere I put it. That's part of what this new story is about. And I think that's the other big part of the message here.
Excellent, Rick. So one of the things before we get into the numbers and talk specifically
Mhm.
about the VMware solution, how do customers get from where they are to these type of solutions? One of the discussions around private cloud is, could I upgrade what I have, move to these environments? When I think about many of the solutions that are extending public clouds, it doesn't necessarily mesh into what I have today. So how do we get from the environments that I have today, and how do these local cloud as a services fit into those environments?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the interesting use cases for this. Is one way you can use this is to deploy this in your corporate data center where you have your existing application. But yet it's creating that public cloud environment. You can do a lift and shift and leverage this as a way to I guess you would say now it's shift and lift because now you can bring it into this local cloud as a service platform, still run it locally, get those kind of things tested and evaluate. And as you decide which functions you may want to move or offload to a public cloud or add DR, you can use this platform to do that. But I think there's more to it than that. The other part of what we talk about here is and I think it's something that needs to be addressed as something that helps people do this faster is these new systems, while very modern, very consistent, there's a great value. They, like many of the more modern converged systems that are coming on the market, have very different power profiles, very different network requirements than what's in a lot of corporate data centers. And that's one thing we've seen again and again when we've talked to people about deploying these is the technology's great, the solution's great, but I have to make sure I've got the right power and I've opened up the firewalls and all those things for going there. One thing that I found interesting is we're starting to see companies say one way to remove that friction is, if there's a co-location facility near the customer site that has great power, has great network connectivity, I can use that place to now deliver this service in days instead of weeks because it's concentrated there. It's a pure environment, and I think that's one thing that's also helping with this shift is people can leverage those facilities and that activity to basically make this migration a lot easier for companies when they want to transform their environment.
Yeah, really important points there, Rick. Absolutely. We've been telling companies for years, you need to understand what you're good at and what you're not. And,
Yeah,
pouring
yeah,
concrete and managing power and cooling, There's a handful of companies that are excellent at that. Most of the rest of you companies, you suck at it. So therefore, if you can leverage other people, that you can do that. So when you say local, it does not need to mean a piece of real estate that I owned. It could be, that spectrum of hosting or the environment.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the
Absolutely.
numbers, Rick. So we're going to pull up
Yep.
a slide here with some of your research. For years we've been talking about, the private cloud category is huge compared to public cloud, because while public cloud is growing huge numbers compared to traditional IT, it is small. So let's take a look at the slides and talk us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, Stu. So this is the thing. Part of it when we're talking about this forecast, and we're looking at product like the VMware Cloud on Dell EMC and the alternative solutions out there, is for part of the use case, which we've talked about, whereas this is the next generation of the corporation's private cloud with better connectivity and better consistency. In some ways, that's the easy activity. But what you're doing is, as we've said, is I'm transferring from a upfront capital expenditure to a 3-4 year subscription model. And so when we look at this and we started thinking about the forecast, and what we're saying is, what I've done is I've moved from an upfront spend in 1 year to spreading it out over 3 years. And from a forecast standpoint, that means in the early years, while you may be deploying, and a lot of companies are going to be leveraging these in their private cloud, in their data centers, the revenue stream to the provider, in this case VMware and Dell EMC, or the group we're talking about today, streams over 3 years. So the forecast can look really big, or it grows very fast, but that's because that subscription revenue keeps growing and growing. So today, when we've looked at some of the solutions that have been out there, you brought up earlier, Rackspace and others as early versions of this, but it's still relatively new. These types of solutions have only really been on the market now for 6 months, 7 months. So 2020, even without COVID, wasn't going to be some huge year. One thing we see actually is that these types of solutions are even more attractive in the world we're living in, because they give you that promise of rapid deployment and scale. But absolutely, by 2022, that accumulated revenue stream, that subscription stream, both for enterprise and for a growing number of edge use cases, we're talking, revenues up and around the $5-7 billion range, and that only accelerates. One thing that's not really showing in here yet, but it's also part of this local cloud conversation, is the 5G build out and the extension and use of these local clouds in connection with the 5G environment. And that's part of this edge use case too. So absolutely, if you want to see, total revenue streams here over, in 2022, as we talked about here, just under $5 billion, going from, $500 million this year. But even the biggest growth and the biggest expansion is after that. And why we think this is the value, why people are willing to pay for this, is because of that value of consistency, continuous enhancement, and a platform for innovation. That's what makes this all come together, and why we think this is going to be such a big and important market in the coming years.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it has an impact on your job, Rick. Instead of counting boxes and the growth there, you're now talking to Wall Street about, oh, well, Dell might have shipped X number of boxes, but they can't recognize it over this period of time. So let's talk about the customers, though. How does a solution like this, what do you see it affecting their adoption of what they're doing with their overall cloud strategy?
Yeah, I mean, this is the case specifically for VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, is, without a doubt, as we all know, that VMware and is a critical part of most corporations' IT environments today. Many of their applications are there. They've invested great amounts of resources and expertise in understanding how to operate and drive those environments. And one thing this does is, again, it gives them that ability to leverage those investments and the things they've done there for application design and disaster recovery and sort of the management of their IT environment. But now, again, use it in this as a service way. So it's definitely one of the big benefits we see, is it helps people make that transition, removing the friction of that modernization for a lot of companies if they want to move to a cloud environment. That's step one. I think that's value one. I would say and point out, VMware also now is being very, focused on making sure that it's also a strong platform for these next generation cloud native development environments. And that's been added to these platforms. And we'll absolutely expect to see this in all the VMware cloud solutions. So that's another great part of this is they're, again, preserving that ability for their customers to both do better with their existing environment and also have a platform for going forward with these new systems. For us, the big thing is a continued focus by VMware and Dell and its partners to make sure that it can scale its ability to operate these environments. One of the things they're making a commitment to their customers, we're going to make these continuously available on very good short notice, and that they continually improve. And that's going to take a lot of back-end investment because really VMware has to now centrally manage not 100 or 1,000, but potentially tens of thousands of systems for many customers around the world. That's the real next big step here we see is when you can add that fleet management ability. So the company has the ability to say, I can now deploy some great new service in one place, 100 places, 1,000 places, while still being secure, while still offering my end users, the availability and the latency that they want. That's a very powerful thing that companies are going to be able to offer in the coming years.
All right. Well, Rick Villers, really important items there. I'm really glad you brought up, about the modern applications, about their data. Of course, VMware's partner Dell has a strong legacy in data. Something
Absolutely.
IDC's tracked. The explosive growth of that for more than a decade now. So thanks so much.
And I think you captured that perfectly. The data control part of this is critical.
All right. Lots more from the VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. I'm Stu Miniman, and thank you for watching theCUBE.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Jeff Frick here with theCUBE. We have a CUBE conversation today talking about an exciting announcement coming out of our friends over at VMware. It's the second generation VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. And to tell us more about it, we've got a couple CUBE alumni that we're always happy to have on. First off, we're joined by Matt Morgan. He is the VP of Marketing at VMware. Matt, great to see you.
Great to see you too, Jeff.
And then Wei Wong, she's the Director of Product Marketing at VMware. Wei, great to see you as well.
Nice to see you, Jeff.
So first off, hope you guys are getting through the stay at home and work from home and family, everything good?
Yes.
These are unprecedented times for sure, but we're fortunate and we're doing fine. I hope everything's going well with you and your family.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we are lucky to be in the IT space, so we can flip to digital much easier than some industries. But let's jump into this announcement. Second generation VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. You guys only announced this in production like a year ago. So Matt, what kind of drove a second generation already? What were some of the drivers, and what is the essence of this second generation?
Yeah, this space is moving really fast. As you know, public cloud has captured the imagination of practically every IT organization on the planet because the public cloud provides a new way of doing business. It allows you to consume technology on demand. It allows you to have elasticity. It allows you to have OpEx financial treatment. But more importantly, it takes you out of the core management business. No more hardware refreshes, no more operational control of the core infrastructure. This is all delivered as a service. The problem is in order to get this value, you had to turn to the public cloud. You had to actually place your workload in a data center that someone else managed. And that data center might be far away from the data that is being generated. And so in many cases, it's just simply not practical to move all of your workloads there. So on-premise technology is still going to be important. What VMware announced way back in 2018, I think it was August 2018 at VMworld, was Project Dimension. And the whole concept was about delivering the cloud to the data center, but truly allowing you to run your data center or data center infrastructure in a truly managed cloud-centric way. We then commercialized it when we announced VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, the product, and the uptake's been off the hook. We've seen industry analysts, like you saw with Rick, we've seen our customers really embrace this technology, and we've gotten enormous feedback. And that feedback has also driven a new set of requirements. And the truth is, while we envision this technology to clearly be an edge play, our customers are telling us it's a data center play. They believe that they can reimagine their data center to operate just like a cloud. And by deploying VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, this facilitates their needs to do that. But they needed a new class of system, something a lot more powerful than our first generation, something that could take on all of the workloads. In fact, there's a slide, if you want to pull it up, we can kind of illustrate this. This second generation solution is all about turning the volume up to 11. We are enabling organizations to put 2 times as many VMs on this technology. They, in effect, can run twice as many workloads. More importantly, for an IT architect, they can design a system that will take on the most demanding, most complex business critical applications with the largest set of data and be able to manage that as an entity, but in a cloud model on premises.
Now, Matt, I'm struck a little bit because, first off, you talked about edge, and this was really, kind of a response to growth of the edge and the anticipated growth of edge and IoT. And then now you're saying really, there's this great opportunity in the data center. And I think we had Rick on from IDC, he talked about local cloud as a service. So that's spanning a pretty wide range of, environments, workloads, all types of demands. So what are the real critical, kind of functional capabilities of a local cloud as a service, and specifically VMware Cloud?
So we partnered with Rick when he was defining this category. And if you look at Rick's research, he sees this category growing, I think, to close to $5 billion all-in revenue. That all-in revenue is coming in the next 2.5 years. That's a faster scale out than we saw HCI. And in his research, he's finding the same information that we found when we did our early customer surveys. We have identified a real need at the edge. So let's not underplay that. If you look at a 5G cell tower, typically they need compute that's local. There are going to be tons of these erected over the next few years, and they don't have on-premise IT infrastructure people to manage that technology. So there's an opportunity to have a managed approach where the compute is local, but it's managed as a cloud. Clearly, the solution is custom designed for that. But I can look at a dozen other IoT-centric opportunities. Let's talk about energy production, an offshore oil rig. Again, no IT staff, the need for compute, lots of sensor data, the opportunity to deliver a managed approach gives you that capacity. Let's look at agriculture. Again, pushing out compute to the edge. So this edge component is another hyper growth area for information technology, and we have a great solution custom built for that. However, as I had mentioned, right, the growth of use cases includes the most important, the most significant business critical apps that are really big apps that live in the data center. This can include a variety of different use cases. Think about a hospital. They have data centers in each of the regions. That's a perfect fit for this. Talk about a technology base for virtualized desktop infrastructure. Think about having to deploy an SAP application. There's a dozen more I can think of right off the top of my head. But what we did with this second generation is we listened to the customer. The customers wanted more power. They wanted more capacity. They wanted the opportunity to have a full rack that could beat their expectations on the capacity and power side so that they can fulfill their requirements. And that's what this is all about.
So that's great, Matt. So Wei, you're a little bit more in the weeds in the product development. What are some of the things that you're excited about in this second gen offering that maybe people aren't as aware of, or maybe is a little bit below the radar?
Right. Okay. So let me first talk about that. This is truly, as Matt pointed out, not an insignificant release, right? This is not incremental. We, for example, that our customer, we're rolling out a full 42 RU rack that is support the traditional use cases and also the modern use cases. And thinking about also a brand new instant type that we call internally called M1D medium, that in which we doubled not the socket count, but also the CPU, moving from a 24 CPUs to a 48 total, and double our RAM from a 368 to 764, and also doubling to introducing a all flash, like NVMe based flash to secondary storage from 11.5 to 23 terabytes. And all these is really to honing in what Matt had pointed out, that enterprise class, the high workloads, very density workloads, right? You can put into literally 12 to 15 this kind of nodes for development, and allows you to have that in the data center and to making sure that you have that kind of a capacity for performance. We have that. The second thing I want to mention, as you can imagine, is the VDI. I think virtual desktop infrastructure cannot be more important at this environment. Everybody is looking at it, and especially for the highly regulated industries like healthcare. So VMware, right? We are the market leader with our offerings as a VMware Horizon solution. So what happens in this release is we actually fully certified on the VMware Horizon solution to making sure that we offer that enterprise distributed capacity to the industry that who really want to ramp up fast, and also to making sure that they obviously cannot have extra IT support, to have that capacity to offer the remote workers, the frontline healthcare workers, and other business continuity type of use cases to that capacity for VDI. The last one is actually, as you can imagine, also in this environment, is data backup and recovery, right? The enterprises are looking for a solution that in which they can not only backup, protect, and also search for the things that they can actually search for historical reasons. So in this release, we are actually certifying 2 solutions for backup. The first one, of course, with our friends at Dell, right? Dell Data Protect solution. The second one that's an industry-leading solution right there. And the second one is actually the Veeam. With both solutions now, we can truly offer our customers who are looking for an enterprise strength backup and solution for the continuity, and also for this to continue to operate in this environment.
So I'm just curious, before we let you go, you talk about this being a pretty significant release, and we've talked about market spaces from edge back into the data center, and really kind of enterprise class, heavy workloads, critical workloads, applications running this. So as you look forward, not giving any secrets out in terms of roadmap, but where do you see this class of application evolving?
So I think that you can imagine we talk to a variety of customers. There are different ways we can actually expand this. Many of our retail customers has talked about their suggestions and 5G towers. Not only we can expand it to a data center, we probably can actually offer this type of solutions into, for example, a substantial retail shop or a back of the pizza shop, right? That's going small on one end. The other end is, I think that many of our customers has expressed interest of co-locators, right? They're working in other geographical areas, so they're actually working with local providers that they don't own themselves. They do not even want it to purchase, right, the cooling and managing the space. So they want us to provide an integrated solution with many of the large co-locators, but as well as some of the niche co-locators, so that we can offer that end-to-end and offer that together as a platform to our partners. So that's where we're going.
Very exciting space, and you guys do move quick. Matt, I'll give you the last word before we sign out. Where can people get more information? When's GA, or I guess, or is this GA? I think we are GA. Give us the last word.
Yeah, so yes, the service is available. People can get more information at VMware.com. And I think, the truth of the matter is the cloud is an operating model. It's not an individual data center location, right? And the idea of a cloud operating model that could be inherently hybrid, that can move from the public cloud data centers to your own data centers, to the edge, to everywhere in between, including MSPs. VMware provides a great platform that standardizes across that. One of the things that is a driver for VMware customers is their ability to keep their existing workloads without having to modify, refactor, or rework them, right? I have a workload that I sit in a data center in a public cloud. If it's on VMware, I simply vMotion or use HCX to move that workload, and I could be up and running instantly. That consistency adds a lot of flexibility, agility, and it helps people do things faster. So I think those are my final comments. It was really good to see you, Jeff. Thanks for having us.
You
Yes,
too.
definitely.
Thanks for checking in. I think it's the first time we've done one of these, but certainly we've spent lots of time together around the Cube set. So I'm glad everybody's healthy and this too shall pass. So keep working hard, keep delivering those great products, and thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you,
Thanks a
Jeff.
lot.
All right. It's Matt and Wei. I'm Jeff. You're watching theCUBE. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Jeff Frick here with theCUBE. We're in our Palo Alto studios today for a CUBE conversation with some of our friends from VMware. Big announcement today, and we're excited to have Kit Colbert come on. He is the VP and CTO of Cloud Platform Business Unit. Kit, great to see you again.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. So big announcement. It's the second generation of the VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. Now, you guys just brought this to market barely a year ago. Tell us about the new announcement and some of the excitement around the changes that you guys put in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so this has been a project that's been in the making for a few years now. We first announced the product version of this in April of last year, and then we announced the general availability of it in August at our VMworld conference. And so, as we've been engaging with customers since we went GA, what we've seen and heard from them was that they're looking for more data center style options. Traditionally, when we first started this project, you may remember it was called Project Dimension before it became the product of VMware Cloud on Dell EMC. Back when it was Project Dimension, we had more of an edge computing focus. We were focused on how can we get compute and our VMware infrastructure out to factories and retail settings and so on and so forth. And so we designed the system for those types of environments. A half-rack configuration, smaller number of servers, things like power supply and UPS built in. But as we heard back from customers, what they said was, hey, this is great, but we have a lot of needs in our data center today. And so the idea there was, let's rethink this offering for the data center and actually produce the types of rack architectures and server types that customers are looking for.
Just goes to show you try to give them yin and they want yang, right? It's
Yeah.
so it's a very different kind of challenge than going into the data center environment. And one of the promises of cloud is obviously provisioning, right, and spinning things up. So that's a really important piece of the puzzle. How are you guys addressing, letting people add capacity and kind of change this configuration if it's actually, in my data center?
Yep. Yeah, so you're seeing a number of different things that we're doing here, really enhancing the maturity across the board of this offering. So it's important to realize that this is a cloud service. That yes, even though the physical servers in the rack reside on premises for a customer, again, in their data center at a retail location, it is a cloud service, and that we are running this and managing this like cloud service. And so like any good cloud service, a customer shouldn't have to interact with any human being, right? They can just call an API. And indeed, that's the way it works. Either through an API or through our UI workflow, today a customer can come on and order a new SDDC rack for their environment. And that initial provisioning, we fully automated that. We had a Dell service technician coming out to actually configure the hardware on site. But then after that, we didn't have many options for customers. Let's say that they started out with maybe 4 nodes on site, but then they realize, oh, I actually need 6 or 8 nodes, right? They're getting more applications on there, greater usage, and they just need more capacity. And so what we support now is this ability to actually, again, use an API by request additional servers for their existing racks. And this is, again, something very simple to do. In just a few weeks that those things will arrive, the service technician will be there to install them and get that customer up and running.
Right. So I was going to say, typically it's order, and then you got to put the stuff in and deploy it, right, and then support it. So you just touched a little bit on the deployment. Did you basically take that order and then just with your existing process get into the data center and light up that additional hardware?
Yeah, so we've done a lot to really automate this whole process. And the really powerful thing here is that this partnership that we have between VMware and Dell runs really deep. So we've actually engaged and integrated into their manufacturing process so that as we get that order through the API, through the UI from a user, we can ship that over to Dell to tell them the specifics of what that customer ordered, and Dell can get started manufacturing that. We actually, again, as part of that manufacturing process integration, we can get the latest version of our cloud software onto those servers. We can install unique cryptographic keys on those servers so we can identify them. And then we work with the Dell shipping and the Dell service technician to actually meet those physical servers when they arrive and properly set them up and configure them. So for the customer, it's a completely hands-off experience. I think that's the really powerful. They're not in, they don't need to get in the nitty-gritty of hardware configuration and installing our software and managing the life cycle of it. It's much, much simpler than that. And so, I think we've really taken that and extended it here, both with the additional rack types, and we offer a full rack now for the data center, new host types, a new host type that's much beefier, better for data center workloads, and finally for that expanded capacity that we just talked about as well.
Right. And then on the support side, I assume, even though it's VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, that probably the first line of support is still VMware, it's still the software on top of the infrastructure.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And yeah, you're right. It is. It's a VMware run, VMware operated service, and absolutely VMware provides that first line of support. So it's not one of these situations where you've got two different vendors pointing the finger at each other, and the customer has to figure all that out. No, it's on VMware, and we need to figure it out. We obviously work with Dell in the back end. We've also integrated with their telemetry systems, so we can pull all the different sort of hardware telemetry monitoring data that they're getting, so we can understand the health of those servers that are running. And when we detect a problem, is that something that we can fix remotely by just accessing it with our engineers, or do we need a service technician to actually go out there and fix a physical issue?
Right. So it's just interesting, you guys launched this really thinking more edge, and you're getting drawn into more of a data center. So why are you getting drawn in? What are some of the advantages, that the CIOs and the CTOs are seeing with this type of a deployment?
Yeah. So the data center part is really interesting. And again, surprised us because we thought there would be more need at the edge initially, just because, hey, these edge environments are really difficult to manage, and they're kind of distributed, and people don't have IT staff there. But what we're surprised to hear about is the very urgent need that customers have in their data centers. Now, again, they have servers in their data centers. They're running these things today. But what they find is that it just doesn't work that well, and that they're spending a lot of time and resources on just keeping the lights on. And it's, these things don't differentiate them as a business. One of the things I talk to customers a lot about is that no customer has ever differentiated itself by how well they run VMware infrastructure. And that might sound kind of crazy at first, right? But it's true. Now, that can differentiate themselves negatively by how poorly they run our infrastructure, and then their apps don't work very well. But to some degree, having working VMware infrastructure is just table stakes.
Right.
And then what they do at an app level is what differentiates them. And so this idea that we can come in with VMware Cloud and Dell EMC, just take care of all that operational overhead for them, is really, really powerful. And so as you see folks and customers and companies going through these digital transformation cycles, modernizing their applications, they're like, oh man, I need to actually modernize my infrastructure as well. And so that's a compelling event that we say, it's like, oh, they're starting to rethink this.
Right.
And as they're rethinking that, they're like, well, why am I doing all this work in the first place? Let's actually rethink the whole thing and take a fundamentally better approach, i.e. a cloud approach. And so that's where VMware Cloud and Dell EMC comes in. And again, I think that's why we're seeing so much interest from customers, and again, where CIOs and CTOs can really see a lot of benefits.
Right. And I'm just curious your take on from kind of a product development and product release point of view, right? Is this kind of a typical VMware, kind of speed and pacing, or is this really, getting to the second gen and the shift, kind of in your go-to-market as really more of a response to the market? Because again, as I was preparing and looking up when the initial launch was, it really wasn't that long ago. To kind of pivot and call it second gen and include features and functions that are coming back from the market, would you say that's kind of typical, or are you guys getting a little bit more agile in your own, kind of product development cycle and getting away from those massive PRDs and MRDs and actually, trying to respond more quickly to the pace of the marketplace?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And yeah, you're right. We are going through our own digital transformation here at VMware as well, right? We are shifting from a company that primarily sold shrink wrap software to a company that sells cloud services. And so, as you look at that, it actually changes a lot of what we can do. We can respond much more quickly, much quicker to this sort of customer feedback. We can ship new updates much more frequently. And so, if you look at our traditional vSphere release cycles, those were what, every 12 months, 18 months maybe at most. But what we can do now with our cloud releases is actually update and do major updates every 3 months. And so we call this kind of the second major advance of VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, but in reality, it's our fourth actual release of our underlying software. And so we're actually doing these underlying releases much, much quicker. I think the reason that we're focusing on this launch in particular is because of the fact that, again, customers have been asking for this data center level of support and really optimizing this solution for the data center. And so now we've gone and done that. And again, I think we're going to see a lot more interest from the customers on the data center side because of it.
Great. Well, Kit, thanks for giving us the quick update. Congratulations on the release, and just keep rolling it. Listen to those customers, and they'll tell you what they want.
Definitely, yeah, we're excited to. Thank you.
All right, Kit, thanks again. He's Kit, I'm Jeff. You're watching theCUBE. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.